Part 3, The Collision. Chrissy's attack. The beach fire was a smear of orange against the deep, bruised purple of the Amity Island dusk. It was the unofficial start of the season. The air was warm, thick with the smell of salt, cheap beer, and the first hormonal flush of summer. A dozen college kids and year-rounders were scattered on the sand, a tangle of denim and flannel. A guitar was being strummed badly. Tom Cassidy, his face already slick with a beery sweat, was trying to impress a girl named Chrissy. "Another beer," he offered, holding one up. "I think I'm gonna go for a swim," Chrissy said, her voice light. She smiled at him, a simple, automatic gesture, and stood up, pulling her sweater over her head. She was a silhouette against the fire, then a ghost in the moonlight as she ran toward the surf. "Hey!" Tom yelled, scrambling to his feet and fumbling with his jeans. "Wait up, I'm coming." He was drunk. He stumbled, fell, cursed, and finally gave up, collapsing in the soft sand at the tide line, a beached, clumsy animal. Chrissy didn't look back. She hit the cold Atlantic water with a sharp, joyous shriek. The water was black, but the moon was a perfect, full circle, laying a brilliant white road on the surface. She swam out, powerful, easy strokes, following the path of the moonlight. She was 50 yards out when the first pull happened. It was not a bite. It was a tug, a sudden, impossible stop. "What?" she gasped, treading water. She looked back. The fire was a distant, warm speck. Tom was a lump on the beach. "Tom!" she yelled, but her voice was small against the surf. It happened again. This time, it wasn't a tug. It was a seizure. A violent, submarine force grabbed her leg and pulled. She screamed. It was a real scream now, a razor blade of terror that cut through the night. "Tom, help me!" The force pulled her under. The road of moonlight vanished. She was in a black, cold, silent world. She kicked, frantic, her lungs burning. She broke the surface, gasping, but was immediately yanked back down. This was not a test bite. This was not a frenzy. This was an execution. It was an intelligence, a collection. The shark, a 25-foot void in the darkness, had her. It was not feeding. It was holding her, dragging her down into the deep, its grip like a steel trap. Her screams became bubbles. On the beach, Tom, drunk and oblivious, had fallen asleep. The water went still. The road of moonlight was unbroken again. Chrissy was gone. There was no blood, no remains, just absence. The hiring. The next morning, the sun rose on a different part of the island. Quint's shack was a mess of shark jaws, coiled ropes, and empty bottles. The man himself sat at a cluttered table, his hands, thick, calloused, and scarred, working a thick needle through a piece of canvas. The iconic, "Help Wanted" sign, painted crudely on a piece of driftwood, hung crookedly in his window. A knock. Quint didn't look up. "We're closed." The knock came again, firmer this time. "Are you deaf or just stupid?" Quint growled, not looking up from his work. The door creaked open. The man who entered was not a tourist. He was in his 50s or 60s, his face a mask of weathered, leathery lines. He had the same, far away, look in his eyes as Quint, the look of a man who had seen too much. It was Jacob Umalik. He held a worn briefcase. "You're hiring a mate?" Umalik asked. His voice was quiet, calm. "Can't you read the sign?" Quint grunted, still working the needle. "I need a mate, not a, what the hell are you?" "A professor." "I'm a writer," Umalik said simply. Quint scoffed, a short, sharp, ugly laugh. "A writer? Get the hell out of my shack. You look like you belong at Woodstock with the other hippies. What do you know about work?" "I was a fisherman," Umalik said, unfazed. "Up north, Newfoundland." Quint's hands stopped. He slowly looked up, his pale, piercing eyes narrowing. "Newfoundland. That's hard water. What did you hunt? Cod?" "We were contracted for a great white," Umalik said. "But we found an orca." Quint put the needle down. He stared at Umalik. The name of his own boat, the Orca, hung in the air between them. He named it after the only creature in the sea he truly, deeply respected. The only thing, he figured, that could kill a shark. A killer whale, Quint said, his voice now a low, dangerous monotone. You hunted a killer whale. No, Umalik said, his eyes meeting Quint's. It hunted us. It was a bull. My captain made a mistake, killed its mate. The bull, it remembered. It was intelligent. It wanted revenge. It sank our boat. I was one of the few who made it back. Quint held the stare for a long, silent 10 seconds. He was studying Umalik, the writer, and seeing something else. He was seeing a survivor. Where'd you serve? Quint asked, changing the subject so fast it was a test. Umalik, who had been expecting another question about the whale, was surprised. How did you? The eyes, Quint said. Only two kinds of men got those eyes, men who've seen war, and men who've seen the deep. You've seen both. So, where'd you serve? Army, Umalik said. 101st Airborne. Quint gave a single, respectful grunt. He was Navy. Army. Figures. At least you weren't a cook. You know how to take orders. He stood up. He'd made his decision. All right, Army. You're hired. But I'm not paying you to think, or write, or talk to spirits. I'm paying you to work. You start tomorrow. 4 a.m. I'll be here, Umalik said. And you put that peace pipe away, Quint added, a new, almost playful, sarcastic, tough love in his voice. This ain't no hippie convention. We're sharkin'. Umalik nodded, a small, knowing smile on his face. He was in. He was on the boat. He didn't mention the Indianapolis. He didn't mention his research. He just had his in, and he would wait. Brody's, dull town morning. The phone in Chief Martin Brody's house rang with the shrill, impatient sound of a 1970s landline. Brody groaned, his face buried in a pillow. His wife, Ellen, nudged him. Martin, the phone. It's the ocean, Brody mumbled. Let it ring. He sat up, rubbing his face. He was a man who looked like he belonged in a cramped, smoky NYPD precinct, because that's exactly where he'd come from. He looked at the peaceful, sun-drenched Amity bedroom and sighed. He picked up the phone. Brody. He listened. His face went from sleepy, to annoyed, to alert. He's sure. All right, Hendricks. I'm on my way. He hung up. What is it? Ellen asked, sitting up. Another karate chop. Brody was pulling on his pants. That's what I hate about this place. I am a homicide detective, Ellen. I've spent 20 years hunting real predators. And what do I get here? Some kids are karate chopping fences. Or the New England accent. Ya ahd. Ca. It's dull. I'm bored. You came here to be bored, Martin, she said, smiling. Yeah, well, he pinned his badge to his uniform shirt. At least I'm not bored today. Hendricks says Tom Cassidy, that kid from the party, he's reported Chrissy missing. He thinks she swam off. Oh, Martin. Yeah, dull, Brody said, his voice now grim. He was a cop again. He grabbed his hat and walked out the door. The investigation. Brody's jeep kicked up sand as he drove onto the beach. His deputy, Hendricks, was waiting for him, looking pale. Tom Cassidy was sitting on the hood of a police car, wrapped in a blanket, shivering. He's still half drunk, Chief, Hendricks said. Brody, the homicide cop, took over. He walked over to Tom. You were with her, Brody said. It wasn't a question. Yeah, Tom stammered. We were at the party. I had too much beer. She wanted to go swimming. I ran after her, but I'm a lousy swimmer. And I was, you know. Drunk, Brody said, his voice flat. Yeah, I think I passed out. When I woke up, she was gone. I looked. I yelled. She's just gone. Maybe she swam to shore, down the beach. And didn't get her clothes. Brody said, pointing to Chrissy's neat, folded pile of clothes by the dead fire pit. Tom's face crumpled. Brody sighed. All right, Hendricks. Start a 20-mile search. Both ways. Call the Coast Guard. Chief, Hendricks said, his voice cracking. He was pointing down the beach, at the dunes. Chief, I don't think we need the Coast Guard. Brody looked. Hendricks was standing over a grotesque, mangled thing. It was Chrissy's remains. Or, half of her. Her torso, severed cleanly at the waist, had been washed up into the dunes, half-eaten by crabs. Brody, the homicide cop who had seen alleyway murders and mob hits, felt his stomach turn. This was not a human predator. This was different. The boating accident lie. It was a shark. Brody, the coroner, and Mayor Vaughn were in Brody's small, wood-paneled office. The coroner, a pragmatic old man, had just laid it out. A shark, Mayor Vaughn said, forcing a laugh. In June. Come on, Doc, that's absurd. I'm telling you, it was a shark, the coroner said. The bite radius, the serrations, it's definitive. No. Vaughn slammed his hand on the desk. This is a tourist town, Martin. We are 3 weeks from the 4th of July. Do you know what a shark panic will do to my summer dollars? No. It was a boating accident. A boating accident. Brody, the homicide cop, finally spoke. His voice was cold. A boating accident. Did the boat chew her in half? We don't know that. Vaughn shouted. It could have been a propeller. We'll say that. A tragic boating accident. And what do I tell the girl's parents? Brody asked. You'll tell them what's best for this town. Later, Brody was on the Amity car ferry, the Tigress. He was with Hendricks, who was carrying a stack of beach closed signs. You're not gonna win this one, Chief, Hendricks said. Just post the signs, Brody grumbled. The ferry docked. Mayor Vaughn was waiting, his face purple. He had a group of Boy Scouts with him. Martin, what the hell are you doing? I'm closing the beaches, Larry. On your authority. You're not gonna karate chop the beaches, Martin. Look. Vaughn pointed to the Boy Scouts, who were all in a small motorboat. They're gonna be fine. It's summer dollars, Martin. We need the summer dollars. Brody, the homicide cop, the man of law and order, was being steamrolled by a politician in a bad anchor print blazer. He felt himself deflate. Just for 24 hours, Brody said, defeated. 24 hours. Vaughn agreed, smiling, knowing he'd already won. The Kidner attack. The 24 hours were up. The beaches were open. They were packed. Brody sat in his beach chair, his police uniform making him sweat. He watched the water, his eyes hidden behind sunglasses. He was a paranoid homicide cop, watching a crime scene that was now filled with 500 potential victims. He watched the iconic beats of the day. And then, the boy on the yellow Lilo. Alex Kidner. It glides past 2 other swimmers. It ignores a dog playing fetch. It targets the Kidner boy. The intelligence is terrifying. The attack is brutal. It's not a test bite. It's an execution. A collection. The gush of red. The scream. The panic. Brody runs into the water, a man who hates the water, a cop trying to stop a killer he can't see. Get out of the water. Everyone out. Brody screams, frantically waving the mass of innocent swimmers to shore in safety. People of all walks of life, all ages witnessing a body being decimated in a flurry of waving arms and a geyser of blood leaving a fine bloody mist in its wake. The boating accident lie is dead. The dull town is gone. Brody, the homicide cop, has a serial killer on his hands. The town hall. The Amity town hall was a pressure cooker. Every seat was filled, and a sweaty, angry crowd of business owners stood 3 deep against the walls. Alex Kidner is the kid who was missing at the beach. His mother says it was the sharks. A man frustratedly grumbled. We don't even know that there's a shark around here. Look, I can't argue with you, I can't talk to you. Larry, do something here. A business owner interrupted. Larry, in his politician voice, struggled to bring attention and order. We have to talk to Mrs. Kintner, because this is going to turn into a contest. Meadows argued, look, it's not just the Gazette, she's advertising in out-of-town papers. Now people all over New England are going to know about it. Mayor Vaughn tried to make little of it. Let's go back to the council chambers where we're going to have more room. Martin Brody insisted, not only that, but I'm responsible for public safety around here. Martin, do something here, the councilwoman demanded. Meadows explained, it's a small story, I'm going to bury it as deep as I can. The ad is going to run in the back along with the grocery ads. Vaughn ordered with the aura of a professional politician, right in here please. Move on in, please. The councilwoman nervously explained, look, I have a point of view and I think it speaks for many of the people here. Not only me because I have a motel, how do you feel? Please. Let's have some order. Let's have order please. Any special questions? Vaughn asked. A chamber member humorously said, is that $3,000 bounty on the shark in cash or check? The councilwoman, in disgust, hissed, I don't think that's funny. I don't think that's funny at all. All right. That's private business between you fishermen and Mrs. Kintner. Martin, would you please? Chief Brody, Vaughn said. Chief Brody nervously addressed the angry crowd of business owners, I just want to tell you what we're planning so far. What about the beaches, Chief? A town member interrupted. We're gonna put on the extra summer deputies as soon as possible. And then we're gonna try and use, shark spotters on the beach, Martin said. Are you going to close the beaches? The councilwoman insisted. Yes, we are. We're also planning to bring in some experts from the Oceanographic Institute on the mainland, Martin answered. Only 24 hours, Vaughn yelled, trying to quell the uproar of business owners. I didn't agree to that, Martin snapped. Only 24 hours, Vaughn repeated. 24 hours is like 3 weeks. A town member screamed in agony, thinking about the loss of money. Sound of nails scratching chalkboard. Quint, the famous fisherman of Amity Island, spoke. Y'all know me. Know how I earn a livin'. I'll catch this bird for y'all, but it ain't gonna be easy. Bad fish. It's not like going down to pond chasin' bluegills or tommy cots. This shark, swallow ya whole. LL shakin', LL tenderizin', down ya go. Now we gotta do it quick. That'll bring back the tourists, that'll put all your businesses on a paying basis. But it's not gonna be pleasant. I value my neck a lot more than $3,000, Chief. I'll find him for 3, but I'll catch him, and kill him, for 10. Now you gotta make up your minds. Gonna stay alive and ante up. Or y'all wanna play it cheap, be on welfare the whole winter. I don't want no volunteers, there's too many captains on this island. $10,000 for me by myself. For that you get the head, the tail, the whole damn thing. Thank you very much Mr. Quint. We'll take it under advisement, Vaughn answered. Mr. Mayor, Chief, ladies and gentlemen, Quint said, leaving. Standing silently behind him, arms crossed, was his new mate, Jacob Umalik. Umalik stayed behind as Quint left. Who are you? Brody asked. I am Jacob Umalik, Quint's mate and hand on the orca. The man nodded, stepping partly into the light. Jacob Umalik. His face was still, his eyes holding an unsettling calm that felt alien after the hysteria of the meeting and the shock of Quint's offer. I know you're Quint's new mate, but, what's your story? Brody asked, walking toward him. Umalik looked at Brody, his gaze lingering, as if deciding how much he should reveal about himself. I was a fisherman. In Newfoundland, Umalik said, his voice a low rumble. I was on a boat that hunted a creature that, remembered. A creature? You mean a shark? No, Umalik said. A killer whale. An orca. It had a reason. It was avenging its family. It was, intelligent. Brody sighed, frustrated. This was not what he needed. He had politics, panic, and a mercenary to deal with. He didn't have time for this. That's a hell of a story. So what are you doing here? Quint's spiritual advisor. I'm his mate, Umalik said simply. But I came to this island because I've been researching. Researching what? Sharks. Umalik looked past Brody, looking out a large window of the room, toward the harbor. No, wrongness. And I don't think that's just a shark out there. What, are you crazy? We all just saw. Alex Kintner, you heard Quint. It's a shark. It's a shark, Umalik corrected, his voice quiet. But it's not acting like one. Not a normal one. There's a wrongness to it. A purpose. It feels more like a collection. Like something called it here. His Native American aura added a sense of awe, mystery and fear of a culture they didn't understand. Brody stared at him. The man's certainty was more unsettling than Quint's greed. This rational cop from New York found Umalik's quiet, cosmic conviction terrifying. A purpose. What is this? Some kind of spiritual Native American thing? You're telling me it's on a mission. I'm telling you what I feel, Umalik said, his voice a low rumble. It feels empty, like a wound in the water. I don't know. He paused, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. I can't prove it. It's just a feeling. The water is sick. Brody, the Westerner, the rational cop, just shook his head. Well, Brody said, I'm a cop. I deal with facts. I can't arrest a feeling. No, Umalik agreed. He turned to walk away, rejoining Quint and softly muttered, but all the business owners heard it as clear as if it was whispered directly into their ears, you can't. As the townspeople and Amity Island's officials left the room, Brody was left alone, caught between the rational, panicked chaos of the town hall and the irrational, terrifying warning from a man who spoke of sick water and empty wounds. End of Part 3.